Okay, so today we're making beef stew for all those kids in college who need a nutritional meal that don't know how to cook. This is for you. Okay, so first we're gonna do is melt some butter. I did a half a stick of butter, and it's in a heavy pan. So any kind of pan will do. These are really nice pans, but I understand you may not have the best pan, but that's okay. Then you're gonna add chunks of beef that has been dredged in flour. So this is the beef. It's going to run you about $11 per package. You could probably get away with doing one package. So once the butter starts to melt, make sure it doesn't brown. So it's getting a little too brown. You coat the beef in flour, and then you put it in the pan. And you want this to just start to brown. You don't want to over crowd the pan, because then it won't really cook. It'll just kind of get all soggy. Alright, so you're going to put these in there. It's going to start to cook. Now what the flour does is it seals the meat, so the meat stays moist, so you don't have like really dried out beef. And it also creates a thickener for the sauce, which, beef stew's got a lot of sauce in it, right? So I'm doing one packet at a time. So we're going to put one package in here. Just stir it a little bit. See how the butter's starting to brown? So I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit. So remember, I'm cooking on gas. You guys might be cooking on electric burners and might not have the greatest stove. It doesn't matter. As long as you have heat, you're going to be just fine, right? So we're going to put the beef in here. So that's one packet. And then I have another packet here. Sometimes you'll see the meat doesn't, it has some fat in it, right? Or pieces are too big. You can always cut them up. This one looks actually pretty good. You want some fat in it, because that gives the flavor, and it gives it, the fat content gives it a lot of moisture, which is what you want. So see, I'm just tossing these like that. And we're cooking in here. So you don't have to salt or anything. You just stir. See how they're starting to brown and not overcrowded, just nicely organized, right? And then I'm going to get a bigger bowl. The most important thing is to make sure you have everything cut ahead of time. This is your number one thing you want to do. So this is browning. You want to note that we've got garlic. I have 3 cloves of garlic, 1 small onion, minced, right? And this is smashed up. This is diced. This is minced. Also, I have carrots. I've used 2 carrots and 2 stalks of celery, and I minced those. So we have that already ready. And then in addition, we have 3 potatoes which have been cubed. I know some people don't like mushrooms, but I like mushrooms. So I did about 4 mushrooms. So notice I have all this cut ahead of time before I even started cooking, right? I've got everything all ready. I've got some Dijon mustard ready. And I have some balsamic vinegar, because we don't use wine, right? Sometimes we do. So you all shouldn't, because you're little people. So look, I'm browning this nicely. See, it should look like this, like a little bit of brown. Not cooked. We're not cooking the meat. We're just kind of toasting it up, browning the edges, right? Getting the flour all cooked. So actually, I'm going to now take this portion off, put it in this big bowl. Notice I have the big bowl ready, right? Smells really good. In addition to all your other ingredients, you're going to have salt and pepper and hopefully some thyme, maybe some rosemary. You can use dried herb or fresh, whatever works for you, whatever you have. Of course, you're on a budget. It's probably going to be dried, not fresh. But I have the luxury of having a garden, so I can have it fresh. So I'm going to put the meat in here. Probably could use a little more butter. That's okay. The meat will cook up just the same, because the fat from the meat will start to melt, and that's going to give you a nice moist bottom, right? So here we go. More meat, more flour. Not too much. See, I'm kind of shaking off any excess flour. I don't want it to be globby and gross, right? So put that in. Put that in. So especially, you want to have a good hot meal, but you could also do this ahead of time. So this will take 3 hours, the whole thing to cook, 3 hours. So then what you could do is after it's cooked, you can let it sit. You can even put it in the refrigerator once it cools and save it for the next day, or you can freeze it, right? So you don't have to use it right away. So here we are doing the second batch. Same thing here. We're gonna just stir a little bit. And then there's nice brown bits on the bottom. So you will need olive oil, pepper, and of course some salt. So don't forget to have always those staples. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick while that's cooking. So while that's cooking up, always tidy up as you go, because I bet you have a small space that you're working in, probably not a great big kitchen. So we're gonna stir this up. It's getting nice and brown. I'm going to add a little olive oil now because I added the butter. The butter is mostly in this one, right? So I'm going to add some olive oil to this to get it sizzling again. And stir that around. Don't over stir, just like let the food cook. That's part of the process. Just let the pan do the work, let the heat do the work. You don't have to stir it continuously. So once it starts to cook halfway, I'm going to add my garlic and my onions to it. So I add the garlic and the onions. And what's going to happen is the fat from the meat is going to act with the onions and the garlic, and it's going to start to saute it. That's what you want. Let this cook a little bit. Okay, I'm stirring it up. If you could smell this now, oh my God, it smells so good. So aromatic. So now we're sauteing that up. Cooked a little bit. I could cook it a little bit more, but we don't worry about it. We can add the celery and the carrot, right? Pop those babies in there. It's still cooking. Don't overdo. Just toss it a little bit. I'm not adding that meat yet, right? I'm not there yet because I don't want to overcrowd the pan, and I want the onions, the celery, and the carrots to start to cook up because we want that nice translucent, almost clear color. So now you can add your pepper, 3, 4, 5, 6, I like a lot of pepper, 7 maybe, and a little bit of salt. I kind of eyeball things, right? So that's about about a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna add that. You probably use a little bit more, but we'll taste as you go. Once you put salt in, you can't take it out, right? So better to put a little less in the beginning than you think. So see how it's getting crunchy bits on the bottom? You see those crunchy bits on the bottom? You see those? See how it's starting to get all crunchy? That's good. That's what you want. Because that's all your flavors. So you're building flavors as you cook. Alright, so now I'm going to add these meat bits, which is from before. And that's got all the yummy butter and all that good stuff in there. So this is only going to make the flavors more developed. Let's toss this up. You hear it. Hear the sizzle? Yeah? Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. All right, to do that, I'm going to add fresh rosemary to it. If you don't have rosemary, you don't have to use it. I'm not going to add too much because rosemary is kind of powerful. I'm going to put the whole thing in like that. And then you can add a bay leaf. These are expensive. I understand if you're on a budget, you might not want to do a bay leaf. And you don't have to. It just adds a little more depth to the flavor, right? And then I'm going to add in my little spice jar here, my spice rack, a little bit of sage, right? And just like about a couple shakes, 5 shakes. And then if I had time, I would put some thyme in there. But I'm just assuming you don't have a lot of stuff. So, huh? Time. So now I'm going to stir this up, get all sizzly. A lot of crunchy bits. Alright, this is important because this is what develops your flavors. This is really important. When you add the balsamic vinegar to the bottom of the pan, it's going to make this big splashy, squirty sound. Hear it? You want that to lift all. Zoom in here and you'll see. See all those little crispy bits on the bottom? You want to start to peel those off. Because those are all your yummy flavors. That's your yummy flavor in there. So I added about 3/4 of a cup of balsamic. Alright, now that's cooking. I'm going to add the mushrooms. And I'm going to add the potatoes. Alright? I like Dijon mustard. This is the green mustard. It's not the like the hot dog mustard. It's got little mustard seeds in it. It's Dijon mustard. I'm going to add a little bit of that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water that was from my pan before. Put it right in there. And a good ingredient is some paste, tomato paste. If you don't have tomato paste, you can use, tomato puree or crushed tomatoes. So I'm going to toss all of this stuff together. Toss it all up like this. I have my oven preheating, so my oven's preheated at 350. Toss it all up. You don't want too much water. See how all of a sudden the temperature just sort of died down a little bit? But look how tasty that looks. It's already starting to look like beef stew. A little more salt, a little kosher salt. A little more salt, not a lot. A little more pepper. All right, and then what you're gonna do is put your lid on it. Shut the heat off and put it in the oven. 350-degree oven. You're gonna let it cook. You're gonna let it cook for about an hour and 15 minutes, and it should be the meat should be tender. You can check it like a half hour and give it a good stir. Make sure there's enough liquid. If there isn't, you can add more water, or if you have beef broth or chicken stock, add that. Okay, and then we just serve it like as is. Bye. Happy cooking.